Hi everybody, this is Let's Play 2025, the January week 4 video. I thought I'd get it started, show you what I've got done so far, and I have a little, this is how ideas evolve story to share. All right, this is how far I've got. I still have the basting here, because I haven't started that one yet, but I blanket stitched this down. I'll show you the edge of it. And I never did I never did show you the bottom of this one. It's blanket stitched too. Let's see what else I did. I did the quilting on here. The buttons are to come. I basted the old rickety grosgrain down there. I blind stitched the yo-yos down for the button. I quilted the mushrooms down, and I did most of the top of the tree. I'm still going to do the leaves. This is part of my story, so that's why I didn't finish it. And is that it for now? Yes, I guess so. Okay, let's make sure I stay there. All right, here's my story. I wanted something here because the prairie points, it just left a gap. And so my initial thought was doing a dingly-dangly beaded thing. And so I started out with a big brown bead. And then I went looking, and I didn't have any red beads that were big, but I did have these, and this is stained, raw wood little barrel beads. So I got my magic marker out and I colored it, and I really liked how this turned out. So this was my tester thing. That's why I used that. But when I went to go use it as a dingly-dang, it was just too bulky. I didn't like it. So that made me dig a little deeper into my bead collection, and I found, can you see these? I'm not sure. They're little sort of flat, I guess I could take them out of the bag, but that's just taking up time. Anyways, you'll see them in my dingly-dangly that I did make. I had these little brown ones, and I had these little barrel brown ones. And so I dug for wooden, they're all wood. I dug for wooden red ones, and I didn't find any, except on this, I have these really unique buttons. I have no idea where they came from. They were just part of a collection I inherited. That you do this, I guess, as the button. So I harvested the red buttons beads off of here, off of another set. I just put that there to show you. And I ended up, I had a piece of love. Remember that fuzzy Chanel that I showed at the beginning? I love that. So I put a knot in it, and there's the beads. You can see the beads. I beaded them up, and I was gonna do a dingly-dangly here. And that was my thought for a couple of days, actually. And I kept trying to think, what am I going to top it with? What am I going to top it with? So I dug into my buttons, and there was nothing I liked that I could top it with. So it was just sitting there bugging me. And in the meantime, here's the bead that I colored with the magic marker. I loved this barrel bead. It was just, I wanted it part of this quilt. This little quilt. So I started playing with it, and I thought, will it work there? If I put it sideways, could I put it there? What could I do with it to decorate it? So I even tore up some fabric, and I put the fabric in, and I tied a knot, and I did a bow, but that was just, it wasn't pretty enough for my liking. It was too, it made it extra bulky, and I didn't like that. So, but in the meantime, when I had the fabric out, it made me also think, I wonder what it would be like if I colored the fabrics. Where did I put those? Oh, they fell on the floor. Oh no, cat hairs. Okay, I got cats. Okay, so I shove this aside. With a fabric marker, I colored in the white sections of some of these brown fabrics, thinking, well, maybe that'd help if I threaded that through here, but like I said, I didn't like how the fabric looked, but I did end up really, really liking how this pin dot, this tiny, tiny little pin dot turned out with the red coloring. So that made me start thinking, what could I do with that? So in the meantime, I still don't know what I'm going to do with my barrel red one, and this dingly dangly is still bugging me. So then, and you'll recall, I had this trim that I used the red one instead of the brown for the side thing. What I decided to do with this is I made it into a, I gathered it up and made it into like a 5-petal flower. And then I colored another piece of that brown pin dot and I covered a button with it. And then this ended up happening. And I really liked it. So then I started playing with, where can I put it? Could I put it there? Could I put it there? I didn't like any of them. And then I went, oh, look, I like it there. And then I'm like, but what about my dingly dangly? So what I've decided is I'm going to not have a topper for the dingly dangly. I'm just going to put a knot and cut a piece so that it's the same on both ends. And I'm going to couch it down, and doesn't it look divine here? I'm going to couch it down like it's one long bead right there. So while I was thinking of that and being very pleased with myself that I came up with that idea, I still had my Chanel needle threaded with the Chanel thread, wool, yarn, I don't know. Anyway, so I put it through here and I started playing with it and I thought, what could I do with this? What could I do with it? And then it hit me. That looks like, even though swings aren't made of barrel rounded shapes, to me that looked like a little swing. So this is what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to put it right there with some of this tucked under the tree as if it's a little swing hanging from this tree. And isn't that, I love that idea. So that's what I'm going to do. This dingle dangly is not going to be a dingle dangly, but it's going to go there. And then I'll quickly put in some of the other things so you can see that what this is looking like so far with my plan. And what else do I have? Oh yeah, my 5 buttons. There, and these beads are gonna go every time the joint turns, I'm going to put a bead there. So that's what it looks like to start this week for me, and I'm going to get going on my embellishing and add some more. I'll see you in a bit. Jumping in here to show you my progress before I move on to the beads and buttons that I'm planning on adding. Thought I'd show you what I've gotten done. Let's see. I blanket stitched across the top piece here, and I'll show you my plan for that in a second. I also did little French knots on the center of these flowers, and I finished the diamond, and I did the little French knots in the center of those too. If you're wondering what size, I used 2 strands of embroidery floss and wrapped them 3 times. I do, if I'm unsure, I do little test pieces to figure out whether the amounts I feel like doing. I also, did a running stitch along the edge of this to hold it down, and I'm waiting for sunshine. Here, I'll pull it down, to get the piece down the side. It really needs a press that I cut, so that's the piece I'm going to use. hopefully in the next day or two I'll have some sunshine, and I'll do the same thing. I'll do a running stitch to stitch it down. And the final thing I'll show for today is, I have a phrase I use quite a bit called "it's all in the details." And sometimes the most subtle details, you think they're not going to make a difference, but they really do. And I showed you that earlier with the trunk of the tree. The little tiny quilting made this look so like a trunk. Well, I stopped in the middle of this quilting to show you the difference between the quilted leaves and the unquilted leaves. And it's just so much nicer with the quilting. Now, granted, they're just tiny little stitches. You can't barely see them, but the effect they add is so big. Okay. Oh, yeah, right. I was going to show you my plan. Originally, I mentioned this earlier, that I had a plan. And what I thought I'd do across the top there is do a series of lazy daisy stitches that look like a heart, 2 of them together like that. And I did a test, and I in my mind, I was thinking this is what I was going to do, but I also mentioned to you a plan B came into being, and I do like the plan B better. If I didn't have the plan B, I'd be happy with this, but the plan B is better. Excuse me. Originally, I showed you these little hearts that I had tied together that I was thinking of putting in the center of that. Well, it turned out, when I was looking through a bag that I had novelty buttons in, I have a whole bunch of those little hearts. So my plan is to put spaced little hearts across the top. Like that. They're just the right size and everything. So that's what I'm going to do across the top there. Yes. So, and then the final thing I have to share is I've just discovered that January has a 5th Thursday. So there's a 5th video or week for this month's block. Now I'll be finished my block, so I'll be showing you that before the end of this video. But I have a plan. You have an extra week to work on your block, but I have a plan for next week's video. I'm going to share a bunch of little nothing tips that help. But yeah, so little things I've learned as I was stitching. And there was something else I was going to share next week too. I now forget. Of course I do. Oh well, we'll find out next week. All right, on to finishing my embellishing. I don't know about you, but I'm really loving my block. Here's my finished January brown and red block. I'm so pleased with this, and now seeing this one and the one I did before, you see kind of what I have in mind for all of mine for this year. Anyways, let's go over it. I finished this up and put the hearts across there, and this is on buttons, and I added the beads to the grosgrain and added this lovely over here and the row of buttons, and I added the button to the center. I finished up the quilting on the tree and added the swing and the leaves on the bottom. And oh yes, and I finished up this piece here. Okay, I'm gonna lay it back down. You can have a look again. There. Thanks for watching the January 1 to 4. As I mentioned a little earlier, I will have a bonus episode next week with some tips that might help you too. Okay, enjoy stitching.